Now this is question and answer volume 29. I started this a couple of years ago among the people that sent in comments to the channel, and I try to answer all the comments, but some of them need a very detailed information that I can provide or help with, and so I decided to do the first of the question and answer videos. They proved to be way more popular than I thought they would be. I've got a bunch of people that are sending pictures constantly of the projects they work on, the adventures they've gone on, the rides they've gone on, especially Henry Hawk with his 9,000-mile ride, and some of the adventures we all have among the people that share the passion for motorcycling, and the people that enjoy working on a bike and painting it specifically, and doing some of the mechanical work, some of the restoration work, some of everything. It's a very eclectic group of people, and we all do enjoy sharing the information. So the first question today is from a fellow I've spoken to many times over the phone named Carl in Ohio. Carl in Ohio, you're finally getting your 15 minutes of fame here. Anyway, he bought a bike that he wanted to paint, started to watch the videos I posted, started painting, and then I got a few phone calls, and one of the ones that he's having a problem with is compatibility. Now, I've posted this many times, but compatibility can be a lot of things, but it's usually the thinner in one of the layers that's going down into the layer underneath it and making you it's not friendly. So I had told him, and we had talked about it, and I believe, but I'm not sure, he's having some good success finally, that the first thing to do if you have a bike that you don't know what paint is on it, if you were going to paint this helmet, you don't know who painted it before you or the factory painted it, the best thing is to get a rough surface, 400 sandpaper, and put a coat of primer sealer on. Now that ensures that the thinner is not going to go down into whatever that paint is that's underneath it. Primer sealer. Now you can stack the deck in your favor very easily by using one brand of paint. Let's say you go to the body shop and you buy paint X, and you buy the thinner that goes with that paint, example Colorite. You have a thinner for Colorite, a mid-temp, or that you know ahead of time, or the person you're buying the paint from can assure you that these are compatible products. Now, I remember Mark Morgan ran into this with his 600. We're in the middle of painting it, and he had gotten some white pearl paint, and the thinner that was supposed to go with the white pearl paint didn't like the paint that was underneath it, and we had to do the whole job over again. I remember that. So using one brand of material is a way to stack the deck. Mid-temp thinner. Don't use high gloss thinner. High gloss thinner goes down and penetrates. It'll make you crazy. And if you use the fast drying thinner, you run the risk it's going to delaminate. Mid-temp is, for people that are not professional painters, mid-temp is a safe way to do it. Another thing, and I suggested that Carl do this, take a gallon can and try all the products that you anticipate using. Now sure, it'll add some time to the job, but think of if there's a compatibility issue on a gallon can, you don't want to paint your irreplaceable plastic parts that are unobtainable or something like that. Doing a test, a compatibility test. Put the primer sealer, the color, the clear. Come back the next morning and see if it looks like there's no compatibility issues. Okay, he also asked me about using adhesion spray. I don't use it, other people do. I've seemed to have come up with a formula for myself that works for me. Now, as far as I can tell, when you do all of the things I just suggested, it's still not a guarantee, because you have other factors in your shop conditions, junk coming out of your compressor if you don't bleed the compressor every time you use it. But doing it this way, you at least stack the deck in your favor. Now this is from Scott. He's recently added a Himalaya to his extensive collection of bikes. He's learned the hard way about paint compatibility and shared the information with us on previous question and answers. Thank you, Scott, and good luck with the Himalaya. Now, a fellow named Dylan Ball asked me, and I've heard this from a lot of people, and it makes sense. What kind of radar detector you use? And he was wondering about what's that bag on the tank, that little box, whatever, and what kind of radar detector do I use? Well, I started this by for basically a big part of one season riding with Jose, who had a radar detector. And when we went on these rides, many of them, we were maybe a mile or two over the speed limit, and I would hear 3 bikes back, I would hear the radar detector go off. And it didn't take me long to figure out, well, you know, that might work for me too, you know, since I had riding in areas where there's low law enforcement, but I like to know where, they call them bogeys, where the bogeys are. Anyway, I did the research on the radar detector. Pretty much everybody I knew that had one, Vince, Jose, and etc., had a Valentine. The late Bob Gordon, everybody had a Valentine. I went and bought the Valentine. Now when you have the radar detector, yeah, it looks a little complicated, and there's this, and you need the beeper and the screamer, I mean. It looks complicated, it isn't. So I made a video that's still out on the channel of how I did it. Now since then, I've upgraded it. I went from having it on the bag, which was okay, but it still could be better. I made that little box. That's on video too. You look up Valentine radar detector, all these videos come up. Just search my channel. Anyway, but I wanted to make a point with the radar detector. Before I had the radar detector, I really was very lucky. Many times I would get pulled over and I'd play the old man card and take the helmet off, and I'd say, and make sure when I opened my wallet he'd see a picture of my grandson. And to be honest, it worked a lot of times, but I didn't want to keep putting it to the test. So this actually, since I've gotten a radar detector, this is really a true thing. I have not gotten pulled over once in probably 3 or 4 years. So it's really a good investment, and if you really are serious about it, research out Valentine radar detector, get a screamer, look at the videos how I made the box if that works for you. Now the reason I did mine in a box, if you only have one motorcycle, you can mount it to the gas tank, run the wires under there, put the screamer. But if you have 2 bikes, you want to be able to, in my case I've got 7, so I wanted to be able to move it, and I used a Jivvy tank bag mount. It's all on the video. I don't want to go into this too long, because if you're really serious about it, what I can guarantee you is once you ride with that, you will know, you'll have a plenty of warning to hit the brakes. Or in my case, what I like to do is the area I ride in, let's call them bogeys, they hide. They're in behind garbage cans and behind trees, and once you know where they tend to be, you cruise through that area, because there's plenty of areas where you never see them at all. Anyway, it's a good question. I hope that helps, and I hope if anybody's serious about it, it'll save your bacon as well as it saved mine. Now this is one of many pictures Henry Hawk has shared with me of his 9,000-mile summer tour, and pretty much every day I get some pictures of the tour, and they're just, one is more beautiful than the other. Thank you so much, Henry. Now a fellow named Terrence had emailed me several times and sent comments out on the channel. He has an RD and he's having trouble diagnosing some of the electrical issues. And I had gone into detail about, I'm not good with electricity at all. Don't ask me to cook. I'll clean dishes, but don't ask me to cook. But what's always the first step of having any older bike, and basically in this day and age, you're going to have to work on it yourself, unless you have a friend that's willing to work on it for you. Having the manual gets you a start. But most manuals have a schematic, but to me a schematic is, and because I'm not good with electricity, but I like to just draw, and I did this on a video recently where we were diagnosing a bad starter on the GS. If you are a subscriber to the channel, back up about a week or so, it's on there. And making that little diagram that probably takes 5 minutes to do will save your bacon and save a lot of frustration. And having a little test light, if you make a little test light, and a continuity checker, the 2 things you need. They're both on that video. And with those in mind, at least you know where the problem is. Now it's still up to you to fix the problem, whether it's a bad connection or bad wire. Almost always it's a connection. Wires don't break in the middle. They rot at the end where the connectors are. And almost every time if you clean them up, it'll definitely be better, even if that isn't the problem. It'll save you bacon somewhere in the future. But having the 2 simple tools, a little test light that'll tell you if you have juice, and a continuity tester to test. I showed how to do this, And I'm not good at this. This is only the basic, but I tried to boil it down so that somebody that's even worse than I am, if there is such a person on the earth, can at least have a shot at fixing this stuff. Now, I love having emails like this, one of my favorite. Paul, he loves his MT-09, and of course I like mine, and I sent him out a thing of how much I love mine. I've had it 3 years. I've got over 16,000 miles. Every one of them's been fun. Karen bought it for me for a birthday present, and by the time you're watching this, I'll be in Paris, France. That's my gift to Karen this year. She bought me the bike 3 years ago. I'm taking her to France for 2 weeks on a river cruise. Not a bad deal. Maybe next year I'll get another bike for my birthday. So our good friend Stephen Walker in Australia recently got a tracer, and he wanted to run some ideas by me. He wants to, I guess, personalize it, and he asked me for some ideas what he could do to make the bike, custom or whatever. Well, it did need some work on the paneries, and I guess you can fix that with epoxy and carbon fiber, and he knows how to do that, and I know he knows how to paint, and I know he's a track day guy, so I know he knows how to fix scratches. But anyway, this is my feeling for any bike. The more blue, the better. Every time I painted something blue that was flat black, I liked the bike better. And some custom graphics, you can design your own relatively easily. And in this case, John Pothier helped me, among other things. But the biggest thing is paint the many parts of the bike as you can blue, in his case, the fender and whatever. And in my case, the final touch on many of my custom bikes, the custom wheels. All right, so Freddie sent in a question to the comment section. He has an 87 FZR. He wants to know, he asked me, how much oil do I put in the bike when I do an oil change? Well, since I had just done an oil change on video, and I showed the way I do it on virtually all bikes. Doesn't matter if it's an FZR or GS, any bike in my collection. The method that I use, and there's a lot of other ways to do it. Some people take the oil that comes out. This is things that I don't do, but ways to do it. Measure it carefully in a gallon jug, mark the jug with an ink marker, and put the same amount, clean that, or get another clean jug. So if let's say 3 quarts come out, 3 go in. But that isn't what I want to know, because maybe the wrong amount of oil was in the bike to begin with. So to that. Okay, the other methods is you can look in the manual. The manual says 3.2. Well, first of all, some people can't measure accurately, especially in metrics. And when you pour oil in, some stays in the jug. There's a million things. So the way I've done it, and I just did an oil change. The subscribers can back up a week or two. We did an oil change, and it takes about 20 minutes to do this, but I don't care how long it takes. And one thing I would do is, once the oil and filter are out, and I have changed the filter on every oil change, so then I would put in roughly 2 quarts. As soon as I can stand the bike up straight and see the oil in the window, I'm happy. But now, I know that's not enough oil in the bike, but I have enough that I can at least start the bike without doing any damage. So I'll start the bike, let it run 8-10 seconds, shut it off. Usually, especially on a GS, the red light will come on, you have no oil pressure, and then right away it'll go off. Now, if you let the bike sit for 2 or 3 minutes, the oil has to drain back down, and you look in that window, and it won't be in the window. If you're doing this the way I do it, it'll be low. Now you can start adding oil, and the bike has to be, it has to be standing straight this way and sideways. So if you have a helper and you can hold it up, it doesn't mean it's on the center stand or on the spools or on anything. It's got to be on level ground to be accurate. And standing straight up both ways. A lot of people don't really realize it. And be in the middle of the window. So you add a little, check it. Add a little, check it. And it's time consuming. But in the end, you've got it right in the middle of the window. Now, assuming the bike doesn't burn oil, you're good to go, Ed. But I would check it every time you ride the bike anyway. You never know if something's going to leak, a gasket's going to leak or something. But anyway, this is just simple, what I call pre-flight in a bike. I would always check it. And if a bike does burn oil, maybe you want to put it to the top of the window. But the bottom line is, when you put too much oil in a bike, if that is way over the top, you run the risk of blowing seals out. And I've heard this from real mechanics, it's not a real good thing to overfill that oil. Really not a good thing at all. And it'll tend to make oil leaks in a bike in places that you really shouldn't have a problem. So to get it right in the middle of the window, it also means the clutch is going to work correctly. When you overfill it, the plates tend to stick together, and you get that thing when you go to start off from a light, it goes clunk. It sounds like something's wrong. Now, if it's all done right, and it takes about 20 minutes more, I think it's worth the effort. Here's some pictures of Stefan, our good friend in Romania. He traded his Triumph track bike, for a KTM. I think this is an 890, if I remember right. And cool looking bike. I like it in black. Look at this. Look at the rainbow in this picture. And he's quite a photographer too. I don't know what else to say. I have ridden Ray's KTM. It is a really nice bike, and I like it black, to be honest. I don't know, I'm prejudiced against it. Anyway, the orange wheels and the orange trim on a motorcycle, kind of cool looking. And I know these bikes are serious. This is like an MT-09. This is what? I'm sure it's a wheelie machine too. So another little trick that I shared on the video when I put the starter in the GS, I just did a rebuild. I diagnosed what was wrong with the starter and rebuilt the starter with a starter kit that Luciano had found for me on Amazon. So, and thank you, Luciano. But a relatively straightforward job, but there's one part of it that'll make you crazy, and that is, how do you hold the brushes up off where the brushes reside while you assemble a starter? If you have a pet octopus, it's handy. If you have a friend with 3 arms, it's handy. And I have to work alone. So what I do is I safety wire the brushes up. So now there's plenty of room when I assemble it, and when I've got all the screws in and it's detailed out. I've detailed it out on that video of rebuilding a starter. When it's all done, you cut the safety wire and pull it off. That is a trick worth its weight in gold. If you're working alone, and again, a lot of people have a shop, they have friends, they have everything. Yeah, I'm working alone in a damp cellar and a small garage, and on a limited budget, to be sure. Anyway, that is a trick that is really worth its weight in gold. Now, the fun part of the day, some funny comments. Greg K compared. Well, I made a video. I compared the MT to the RD400, and he sent me a great comment. He could relate to it all. Well, you know what? Anybody my age that's had bikes their whole life, you can relate to whether you own Triumphs or Harleys or. It doesn't matter. It's the memories. As you get older and older, you build these memories, and when you see an old bike at a meetup or something, well, I had that bike years ago. Or in my case, every time I go out to the garage, I see something I had when I was a lot younger. Well, I love these comments when people share the memories, and I think that is such an important part of motorcycling. And a fellow named Hunter, you cannot wait to finish his 87 Ninja 750, which I have 2 of them, in fact. And I responded this way. He's kind of between the lines. I read that he's really hoping he can get it done and get moving on it. Well, you know what? It doesn't matter. When you're done, it's going to be done for the rest of your life. And if you're a young man, you might have that bike for 20, 30, 40, think about it. For me, if I have the bike another year, I'll be happy. Now, it was many years ago when I did my 750 Ninja, and it consumed a whole winter and required a lot of work and a lot of paint work. But you know what? When all the while you're doing it, and I do it basically in the winter, you think, oh my God, all this work, it doesn't seem like it's ever going to get done. But come springtime, it's done, and you have it for the rest of your life. Stephen Walker in Australia, and there's more stuff. Stephen and I have gone back many years. You've seen his videos. He knows how to paint. He had R1 track bikes. He chases kangaroos around Australia. Love to get his emails. He loved the video of the farmer turning into a hooligan when you get on your MT-09. I don't think I've ever had a video that I got more comments on, and people could relate to it. And you might be, whatever, your job during the day, you're baking cupcakes or whatever, and you get on an MT-09, or you get on whatever bike you have, and as soon as you hit that throttle, it's like hooligan time. We all know that feeling. We all know that feeling. Now, another comment I heard, and I've gone back and forth again with the same exact information, but it's worth repeating. Luciano is on almost all of my videos, and we've been good friends now way over, I think, 12 years, 10 years or whatever. Done a lot of things together, bought a lot of bikes, worked on projects. He's just been as good as a friend you could ever have. But somebody asked me, and they kind of like, I'm not going to mention a name because maybe they're embarrassed, they don't want anybody to know. Is Luciano really a good mechanic, or is he like, you guys fake it and stuff? Well, no, I'm the one that's a fake. I pretend I know what I'm doing a lot of times, and I make it look better than it is. But Luciano is a real mechanic, and there's a test for a real mechanic. If you think you're a real mechanic, this is the test. You go buy 3 motorcycles that are 30 or 40 years old for less than $100 a piece. So now your total investment is $300. And at the end of a month, you have a show quality bike that runs like the wind and a lot of extra spare parts. And if you do that once in your life, I'd say, wow, you're a cool guy. Yeah, that's cool. Luciano's done it probably 4 or 5 times already. That he's amazed me. We'd go buy a junk bike, another junk bike. I call them junk bikes, rusty bikes. And this one, the wheels don't turn, the motor doesn't turn. And all of a sudden, I go see him 2 weeks later. And there's a bike, and let's go for a ride. And he lets me ride them, and they ride like brand new bikes. He's an amazing person. So just take my hat off to him. He also does exactly what I do. When you see somebody that's a great mechanic and they work for a dealership where they have chrome tools hanging on the wall and air conditioning and heat. I work in a garage, there's no heat, no air conditioning, no nothing. And a cellar that's probably smaller than your living room. And yet so many things get rebuilt and done and painted here, and you just ask Vlad. Vlad's got a collection, and most of the stuff got done right in this cellar right here. Just one of Luciano's amazing restorations from, talk about bringing a bike back from the grave. And he's got 2 sets of bodywork for this H1 and 2 or 3 extra motors. And Luciano, I am totally impressed. Anyway, again, I get a lot of comment, and I got more and more. And I'll answer, rather than answering each one. This Farmers to Hooligan video that went out, so many comments came in that, yeah, I can really relate to that. But I get on my XYZ, and all of a sudden, the light changes, and I go, well, but that's the whole thing that's enjoyable about motorcycles. And I'm going to address this later on in the video. That a motorcycle is a personal, individual thing. What works for you may not work for me. Well, maybe both of us will enjoy the same thing. Whatever. And some people, that's hard. It's hard to figure that out. And they cheat themselves out of a real total enjoyment of the sport of motorcycling. So, before I end this little segment and then go have a cup of coffee, I just had a recent thing in my house. This house is way over 100 years old. I had a plumbing issue I had to redress, and I had to figure out these really old Moen faucets. I had to figure out how they come apart because I didn't want to take them out of the shower and take the tile down and everything. I went to YouTube, and somebody just like me had exactly the information I need. You didn't need any special tools, but boy, you better know the trick of getting that piece out without breaking it. And thank you to all the people that post useful information on YouTube. It probably saved me a lot of money. It saved me a lot of aggravation, and I just can't believe how much good information. I've done my ice maker. I've done things with the Volkswagen and the Sienna, that how to shut this light off, turn this on, where is the car jack. Everything is on YouTube. So useful, and the thing we all love, it's free. Some really nice pictures from Stefan in Romania of his adventures, and he's got off-road bikes, adventure bikes, track bikes, and he uses them. And we always go back and forth about who's got the most snow over the winter and who's got the saltiest roads. Well, sad to say, I don't ride dirt bikes anymore. My legs can't take the pressure. And it looks like, well, he's a young man. He's cheating. But anyway, he looks like, Stefan, I'm jealous. You are really you're having what I call a life worth living. So another tip, and I just had this happen in the last week. Went out with Joe Roselli and with Luciano. We went up to the new place that we kind of hang out, the Cracked Pot in Warwick. And what happened in the middle of the day, unexpectedly, it's pouring. It's a torrential downpour. Well, we had to come back in the pouring rain. And I had what I usually use is a garbage bag to cover the radar detector. And I usually have sandwich bags to put my camera in. I can't keep it dry any other way because the summer riding gear is not waterproof at all. Now, what really is good though, and I had a couple of sandwich bags in that little radar detector box, and the good camera that's taking this picture fits in that bag. You can put that right back in your pocket. Put your wallet in there and put anything that's waterproof. You don't want to get wet. Put it in a sandwich bag, seal it, put it back in your jacket. Now, even if you fall in the water, there's a good chance you'll save it. But the radar detectors cannot get wet. And they're expensive. I don't know what they are now, but they're not cheap, I know. But anyway, there's a time in the video I like to congratulate people. And there's two people in particular. Michelle has lusted for a 68 Camaro. She finally got it. She's driving it around, and I hope very soon I'll have some pictures of it. It's yellow. Looks pretty nice in the pictures. And I know she's really wanted it for a long time. And the big one that, for me, Joe Roselli, getting the Tracer, and I just can't imagine that he would be any happier than having that bike. He has been wanting to plan some long trips with his friends, and I can't go on any long trips. He can, and you couldn't have a better bike, I don't think, unless you have, you have a dedicated Gold Wing for that. But that bike to me is one of the best compromises. It's still a lightweight enough motorcycle. You can zip around on it and corner hard, and yet you can go on long trips with it. I think Joe's going to be, and he still has his MV, triple. So Joe, Michelle, and of course Luciano for all the bikes he's working on. He's got them all ready now. The GPZ rode like a jewel. The FCR, he's just put a new clutch in, and we may get to ride that this weekend. It just couldn't be any better to be a motorcyclist around this part of the country, even in my cellar. Now, my good friend Joe Roselli has the best comment I have heard about motorcycling, and that's his MV, by the way. And he has a Tracer and an MV now. And within my circle of friends and within the circle of people that comment on a video, we all ride different bikes, and we all ride different places and different rides, different times of day. And no matter what, no matter how it plays out, some people like to go to bike shows. Some people like to go to out in the woods. Henry likes to go. It's Henry's Moto Guzzi 9,000-mile rides. Some people like Moto Guzzis. Some people like Yamahas. Some people like Ducatis. Some people like the old two-strokes. But there's room for everybody, and we can all be friends. And I always think it's sad when somebody has a narrow interest in motorcycle and they can't see how big the buffet table is. There's something for everybody. Whether you like collector bikes, you have a deep pockets and you want one of these exotic Italian bikes, or whether you want to have a Moto Guzzi and with 90,000 miles on it, or you want to have a bike that you've had since you were a lot younger like me, or one of these restored Luciano specials. That bike was made from 3 bikes. This bike, you could not believe what it looked like before he restored it. And if you're into the high-end bikes, the really exotic bike, no matter what, and Joe Padula's RD400, there's room for everybody, and everybody should just enjoy the fact that we all like the same thing. We all share a passion for motorcycles. Old ones, new ones, restored ones, rusty ones, ones that you don't see all the time. It's all part, in my world, of the wonderful world of motorcycling. And I'm so happy that Joe Roselli came up with that saying. I have memorized that, and I take it to heart every time I go to where there's motorcycles. And I saved this for the very end. This is Stefan in Romania. They rescued a little kitty that was so small, and he's become part of their life. And they have another cat, of course. But I always think there's more to life than just riding around on motorcycles. And as we get to know each other, knowing our pets, kind of important too. And I had a pet named Chicky. You just look on my website. I won't spoil the surprise. Chicky. And that movie that's on my channel is not something I made. Dave Midgley made that years ago from footage I had gotten from old VCR tapes and stuff of the days I was modeling. It's very cute if you like pets, about a Baltimore Oriole that lived in my house. Chickie. Look it up. Have fun. Anyway, and most of all, as always, enjoy every minute of your passion that we all share for motorcycling. And thanks so much for watching.